G'day guys, just going to be doing a pretty short stream today, and I really want to be going over how to play TvZ late game if you don't want to use Ghost. And I think for a lot of people out there that haven't seen an alternative style yet, they kind of think that you've got to be playing Bio, and you've got to be adding Ghost if the zerg does successfully get to hive tech. And that's pretty much what we've seen from every single professional game so far, at least in the last couple of weeks. Certainly through GSL, you've got Terrans trying to really win with tempo-focused play. But I've been experimenting with something different, and this was against someone that is at an NAGM. Actually, no, this was on Korea. This would have been against a Korean GM level player at the very least, and I've done it against other Korean GMs. So this is at a relatively high level. It's not quite at a GSL level, but certainly if you're looking for an alternative to Ghost-based play, this is something that I recommend that you at least look into. Now, we're not going to be focusing too much on the opening build, but I will talk you through how this game plays out. The idea for me going into the game was to really just play it fairly safe with a Reaper expansion, judge how the Zerg player is spending his gas, and either go into tanks or banshees or do something to try and control the mid game. So we go for the expansion. So it's a really simple build. If you want it in a little bit more detail, it's just depot, barracks, gas, CC, second depot. And you can either build 2 Reapers, you can go 1 Reaper, 1 Marine, or you can go 1 Reaper and a reactor. It really depends on how you're wanting to play the next stage of the game. Here I like to go for a second gas, and this is on 21. And the reason you'd get this is if you feel like going for earlier tech, if that's going to be for a Liberator or a Banshee, or even a tank while getting an upgrade, you do need this second gas relatively early. And we add the reactor on behind this as well, so the factory will be coming up quite soon. If we have a look at the Reaper, what the Reaper's just doing is poking around, doing a little bit of scouting, nothing too serious. Ideally, the scouting time I've figured out is to try and dart into the main of the Zerg at around 320. And if you dart in there around 320, you're going to see any roach warrens, any other crazy tech, any baneling nests, and you also really want to gauge what's happening with this gas. So here we go, this is at 320, we see he's already got speed, but he wasn't mining any other gas, so we can reasonably expect that he would be taking this third base. And behind this, he's going for a bit of an overlord scout. I saw that he saw the extra tech lab, which would generally indicate Banshee. And because I know he's going to be defending Banshee, I elected to change it up and go for Liberators and get my stim out a little bit quicker instead. This was just kind of a mind game. It's not something that you have to adhere to as a stock standard build. This was really just trying to mind game my opponent. So we crank out a couple of Liberators here. I'm just going to be speeding it up because it's really more about the late game than the early to mid game here that I want to show you guys. And with these Liberators, you can either go Overlord hunting and kill a bunch of Overlords, or you can try and do some harass. Here I love parking in this position because it's very difficult for them to defend if they haven't pre-built spores and put them in those positions. I was a little bit surprised to see that he didn't have the spores already, considering he saw a second tech lab, and that was definitely a mistake. He got a spore here, but he certainly needed one back here a lot earlier. And meanwhile, behind this, we've gotten all our production up, all the infrastructure gone for 5 barracks, 2 factories, and a starport. This is really nice and solid if you're looking to go into the mid-game as Terran. And we're just doing a few medivac drops here and there, nothing too crazy, still using the Liberators to kill some Overlords and get some damage done. And if you can ever delay the hatchery a little bit further, it's always worthwhile going for a few more drops. And as you get more and more units out, you can continue the drops, and you can continue them until these Mutalisks are out and up in your face. This was a really sloppy move by me dropping here, losing a lot of units for very little in return. And ideally what we want to be looking at going into the late game, and you'll see this here, is as we get our 2-2 we actually start +1 ship weapons. Because my idea at the late game is to use a lot of speed banshees, is to use a lot of liberators, a lot of air units, rather than focusing on ghost. And if we only start making ship weapons later on in the game, we're not going to be in a great position to try and use our banshees effectively, especially if they've got carapace on their ground or air units. We're going to be doing very little damage. So I love going for ship weapons. You could even get ship weapons a little bit earlier than this if you can afford the 100 gas. And I also add on 2 extra starports at around 8 minutes as I take my 4th. So I can start either making banshees, I can start making more liberators, and considering the flock of mutas that I've seen, I was pretty comfortable to make more libs. At least so we can shut down any muta harass and transition and hold this 4th base going into the late game. So he was again just doing a bit more harass. These were some nice pre-positioned mines. I love having mines as well, especially against a Ling Bay muta player. You can pre-position them here. Here's always nice. You can have them in these little choke points, always having mines around. 1 mine here. It's a great place for mutas to try and dart in up and down here. So anywhere that mutas are commonly going to be found poking in doing their harass is going to be a great position to put your mines. And he is really committed hard to these mutas, but he's got a really nice banshing box, so this is something you've got to be careful of. We still took out quite a few mutas, but I think he was cost effective overall. So it's 10 minutes 30, we're both approaching max. He's going for his hive, and that's fine. We don't need to kill him before he's got hive. We're actually playing this relatively passively, because look what's in the production tab. We've got Banshee Speed underway, and Banshee Cloak. Because just then we started our +2 ship weapons and got our fusion core. So 4 base, 8 gas, 5 barracks. We don't actually get any more barracks. We just stay on 5 for the whole game. We get 2 factories and we go up to 3 starports. And what we saw here was with one of these spotter marines, and that's actually something that I'd like to point out to you guys, is always put marines around these chokes. If you can put a marine here, that's great. If you can have a marine here, anywhere just off the creep where the zerg isn't going to be able to see your marines all the time is a great place to have them. It allows you to save money on scans if you can. And we have scanned here just to see if he's still got his army hanging around. He was trying to bait out a bunch of these, a bunch of those mine shots, and he got a few of the mines, but we were trading relatively evenly right there in terms of resources lost. And now he's going to be trying to crash through. This is realistically like a big deal of, or a big reason, I should say, for this attack is to actually free up his supply. He's adding on ultras, and he's going to get that 3-3, get the ultra upgrade as well. So he doesn't want to just sit on Mutiling Bane for the whole game. He actually wants to trade, free up some supply, and be able to go into ultras in a little bit as well. But if you can split, and if you can spread your units effectively, then you will be able to trade effectively. He was able to kill a few of these SCVs, but we traded relatively well overall, and we're still about even on the units lost tab. We did have to lift this, so he did deny some mining time, which was quite nice for him, and he's got 1,000 resources, so he'll be able to afford quite a few ultras here. Get that chitinous plating upgrade as well, while going to 3-3. So we're finally starting to get into that late game phase here, and we're doing a few push outs to try and trade, see if we can do any damage onto his 4th or his 5th bases. Again, wanting to try and wrestle back some tempo while he's trying to get those ultras out. This was just a timing that I thought could work out for us. In the end, it's not going to do too much, but if we can just trade, maybe kill a base if that was at all possible, that'd be great. Here we just didn't have enough units, and the ultras did pop out, although he doesn't yet have chitinous plating. This was a nice little move, being able to bait his mutas over the mines. Got a couple of them, and we traded pretty well there. Traded pretty well. And now we're looking to establish a 5th base. As we go here, and as ultras are out, what you want to be doing late game now that we're getting to the interesting part of the game, you always want to be doing these sorts of sim cities. And note, we have a full amount of depots. We don't actually need these depots for supply. We're actually just using these to abuse the fact that ultras are really fat and their AI is super terrible. So having all of these liberators, having the mines, having the turrets, means that if he's got mutas or if he's got ultras, he's not going to realistically be able to barge into this location without taking some really bad fights. And because we're really well established here, we can start moving around with these speed banshees. And these speed banshees are basically as fast as a muta, so you can keep attacking, you can do some damage here. He hasn't taken the gas here. We're really just wanting to scout around, see if we can snipe a critical tech structure and play towards the later phase of the game. These banshees are so incredibly strong at delaying the zerg mining and delaying the economic advantage as he tries to establish it going forward. Now he's pushing through with the ultras and the speedlings, so we're not going to be able to take this unless we get liberators and mines up in a good position on the high ground. And he thinks he's got the ultras, he thinks he's going to be able to take a really good fight here. We reposition the liberators in a much stronger position here. We've got the mines, we've got bio. And he's trying to barge forward here with ultras, and this is a bit of a curious move considering how many liberators we actually have. Now keep in mind, we don't have any ghosts here and we actually don't really need them. Yes, we're losing a lot of supply, but as long as we hold on here, we're going to have cloaked banshees, we've got a lot of liberators, and we're taking a great fight. He's actually been cost inefficient here. The supplies are certainly not telling the entire story. And he did overextend. We might have to lift this, but we can try and keep repositioning these liberators. Start using these banshees as well. If we can ever snipe these overseers, it's great. Otherwise, you just want to keep using the bio and the liberators effectively. And he actually can't win this fight, so this might look kind of crazy to you guys, but this is a situation that I commonly find myself in, as Zerg players overextend off creep into liberators and things like that. They just get a little bit too cocky, a little bit overconfident here. We made a few mistakes in our positioning of the units, and I think that one of the key mistakes that we made early on in the fight was to reposition all of the liberators when we should have only been repositioning 2 or 3 at a time. So it wasn't the best fight in the world, but it did give us the breathing room to get this planetary fortress up. We actually were very efficient there to the tune of 2,000 resources in our favor. And now he's got a few Vipers on the way. He wasn't able to kill us, so it's kind of like he's starving for minerals. We've got a lot of mining bases, and we're able to get some really nice saturation here. We really don't need that many SCVs, considering we've got mules in production. Mules to close the gap in the resources. So he's got the ultras, we've got the liberators, we've got the mines, and so at this stage in the game you want to be going for the +3 ship weapon upgrade, get your banshees moving around the place and deny all these bases. And if you can keep denying these bases, the Zerg is going to starve himself out on the economy. Now if we just speed this up a little bit, we can keep harassing, take down these extractors. They have very few hit points, and if you can deny him from the gas, and he can't produce those key hive tech units that he needs to be able to trade efficiently with ours going later game. And when you can finally afford it, I strongly recommend getting that range upgrade for the liberators, because it just makes them that much more potent. He did take out our 5th, we can just remake that, that's fine. And have a look at the supplies, they've completely flipped in our favor. We're 50 supply up. He's not really mining any gas. Look at his income. He's got 300 minerals and 300 gas mining right now. We've been using no ghosts, just liberators, mines. Look at the freedom zones. And look at the bio. We can try and clean up some creep. We never really want to be pushing too far away from our base, away from the freedom zones. You can even set up a... that could be a planetary, but I was pretty comfortable to use that just as a bit of SimCity and get the orbital there and use some more scans and mules in the game. Now he's got a bunch of parasitic bombs at the ready. He's got abducts as well that he can use. So you never want to be grouping up your liberators too much. These should ideally be a little bit spread, or a little bit more spread out here. They're a little bit too clumped, because if he does parasitic bomb the middle one here, they are going to take some nasty splash damage. And if you have a look at this fight, and you can split against the parasitic bombs, and you can use the Vikings to try and snipe the Vipers, and dart your bio back and forth into the freedom zones, it's really difficult for the Zerg to take efficient fights, even when you don't have Ghost. We've got the bases up and we can just keep making a CC as we take base after base after base. And if he gives us any breathing room at all, then we can keep sniping his own expansions. He's getting a little bit frustrated here and he's moving into minefields. He doesn't have the vision or the detection that he needs. The one problem here is it is very difficult for us to move out onto creep, because all our units take a little while to set up. We want to be using the siege of the mines, siege of the liberators, and take more bases, and constantly pick off his hatcheries. That's my goal in the late game. So we do push out here. This was really just because we're maxed out with bio, and when you do get maxed out with this composition, you want to be trading off units to try and get some more banshees out. The ultimate endgame composition for us is mainly pure air, mine, and a few drops with bio. You never want to completely get rid of bio from your composition, because otherwise it can be quite difficult to actually be aggressive if they've got a really sick air army. And another thing that you could consider might be some cyclones if they've got a lot of ultras or a lot of corruptors, but personally I'm not a fan of controlling cyclones at all. I much prefer to play for the extra starports, to play for the bio, and even mix in a Raven here and there for some point defense drones. Point defense drones are what you want to be using against the corruptors if you do get into a late game engagement here. So again, we were just moving around, trying to do some harass, pick off these bases. We've got a great economy. 50 SCVs, it's all we need. It's so frustrating for the Zerg to try and attack into us. And we've been about 50 supply up for a long time. We're just wanting to secure the game here. We don't want to be throwing away too much. We always want to be taking good fights. And that units lost lead before of 2000 is spread out into almost a 7,000 advantage for us in terms of efficiency of our units. He's even trying desperately to get these golds up. But again, we've got cloaked banshees and they've got speed, so we can keep denying these. He is being quite active with his corruptors, which was a bit of a nuisance for us. But if you have a look at our vision, and we can even put it at this stage in the game to our vision, we do see the bases and we can kind of pick where his units are and where they aren't, and always try and snipe off the bases which he isn't defending as well, because his units can't be everywhere at once. Corruptors are very slow, Ultralisks are very slow, so we can keep moving around, and we've got a much more mobile force. For him to play this optimally, I think he would need to split up half his ultras and half his corruptors, and actually have half his ultras and corruptors here and half his ultras and corruptors around this side of the map as well. But a lot of Zergs haven't done that, and even the professionals I wouldn't see doing that, at least in the late game. It's very difficult to control two groups of ground and two groups of air armies. Incredibly difficult. And the Zerg is, again, just being very cheeky, trying to take these gold bases. But, look, we're in the late game. I'll just point out again, we've got so much defense. All these freedom zones, all these mines. We've actually overmade mines, and that was a little bit frustrating here. But if you're looking to play a style which does not incorporate ghosts in the late game, then this is actually really fun. And if you haven't used speed banshees yet, I thoroughly recommend that you check out this style a little bit more. So have a look at how many ultras he has. If we're just playing bio and ghosts, that's going to look really scary, and fungals against ghost means that snipe can be really difficult to use effectively. And once you've got this army of primarily mine, air, then you can actually make these moves as well. Making sure you never clump up more than, say, 2 or 3 mines in one position. You always want to spread them out so you can have these long fortified positions with your mines where they can maximize their AoE. This wasn't beautifully controlled by us. It's certainly a bit of a mistake to lose some of these mines without doing maximum damage. But again, having a look at the units lost tab, we're being quite cost effective. And if you have a look at the income, we're relatively even still, even in the late game, the ultimate late game here. And even after that fight, we're able to snipe another hatchery and take a strong economic advantage for the next couple of minutes while he has to remake that base. Looking back at production late game, we still make a bit of bio, we still make a couple of medivacs that we can use for drops and to heal it up, 5 speed banshees and 3 liberators. I was wanting to trade out some of the mines from my composition so I can get more mobile units that actually attack buildings. And have a look at how many spore crawlers he's having to make here. That hatchery is 300 minerals. These spores, they're what, like 100 minerals each when you include the drones. So in order for him to defend that base or establish it, he's investing so many minerals. And if we can keep sniping the bases and keep him remaking them, then he's investing a lot of his income away from units and into these hatcheries. Having these 2 groups of banshees is really effective as well. So we've got one group that's at the bottom side of the map, another group up the top. We can threaten the hive, we can threaten his tech, his greatest spire, his baneling nest. I mean, the baneling nest isn't particularly useful right now, but the hive is certainly a concern if he can't make any more vipers. And if he uses his vipers and his corruptors to kill these banshees, then look at what we're able to do with this other group of speed banshees. What are his ultras doing? They're completely useless and he can't use them aggressively. You can't attack into this position when a Terran has this much stuff on the ground. This was pretty nice. This is what you should be doing as Zerg, I think, is adding in a few fungals as well. But even then, infestors are incredibly expensive, they're very fragile, and units lost still, 8,000 up. We haven't been as cost effective as we possibly could be, but I'm still pretty comfortable with what we've managed to achieve with these units. And again, extractor is incredibly important for you to try and snipe. If you can't go for the hatchery, if you can't go for the drones themselves, and he's got 6 spores at this base alone, go for the extractor because the gas is the critical key for them. Although at this stage he's been starving out on the minerals for so long, he doesn't have this base mining minerals anymore, it's just this base and this base. And we're going to be threatening the fact that we can take this gold base as well. We've got such a strong air army. Looking at the units tab, for our ultimate endgame maxed out army, we've got 10 mines, 10 banshees, 10 liberators, 15 vikings, and a smattering of bio that we can use for drops as well. You do always want to be careful. If he turns around and parasitic bombs here, we need to be very diligent about splitting up here, and we are. You can't afford to take really bad engagements against Vipers because a few miscontrolled forces of air will lose you the game when you can't remax because they're very, very expensive. But GG is called from our Zerg here because We're dropping, we're killing the hive. We're dropping, we're killing a base. We've been incredibly annoying with our speed banshees. We've got all the Vikings in the world. It's just a pick and mix of bio and air. The only factory units we're using are Widow Mines, and we don't use ghosts. So I hope that gives you guys some food for thought. I'm going to be uploading this to YouTube quite soon, so if that's where you're watching it, thank you very much. This is the first time I've ever tried creating content like this. Hopefully you've managed to get something out of it. I'm going to be looking to improve on this, so if you've got any critiques, questions, if there's any constructive criticism that you could give me to make this sort of content even better, don't hesitate to let me know in the comments or shoot me an email. And if there's any other styles or builds that you'd like me to go over, or any other recent games in the GSL, for example, or SSL that you'd like me to analyze, you can let me know that as well. But I'll be signing off from here. I'm going to upload this game now, so I'll see you on the flip side. And on the other hand, if you'd like to follow my stream, you can. It's twitch.tv/deathfanatic. It's DETHFANATIC, and I'll post a link in